Hi, everybody, and welcome to Backstage. So glad that you spent time checking out all the incredible icons, luminaries, the heroes of our profession. And we have a great one today because we've been moving towards this whole jazz idiom and opening the landscape so you can come in and be a part of it. The gentleman that's with us today is the dean of the jazz education world. He was part of the start of IAJE and JEN, and he's in the Hall of Fame, and he's a vice president of the Midwest Clinic. And above all, Dick Dunscomb is just an incredible human being who's done more for jazz than anybody on this planet. So would you please help me welcome our guest, Dick Dunscomb? What is going on in Florida, my friend?
Hello, Tim. It's so good to be with you today. Thank you. Things are bright and sunny. We're experiencing the best time of the year. Nice temperatures, low humidity, which won't last long.
True. Can you give us a thumbnail sketch just from beginning, even when you're high school, all the way through to present day, real fast?
Sure, be pleased to do that. I became interested in playing an instrument from my father. He was an accountant during the day, but in the evenings he played trumpet around town. And so I would go with him to gigs and fell in love with the music, went to Millikan University, got my degrees there. My first years of teaching, 12 years, were in the high school area, and I did marching band, concert band, jazz band. Following that, I began a trek through some universities of starting and incredibly raising jazz profiles with bands and degrees and so forth. And during that period of time, I was also the North American coordinator for the Montreux Jazz Festival in Montreux, Switzerland.
Keep going. What about the college times?
The colleges I was at were incredible, just incredible. The opportunity at Purdue to work with non-majors was, I think we ended up having 7 jazz bands at one point. I left there and went to Florida International University in Miami, where I was able to develop a program in 2 degrees in jazz and had a fabulous staff. Arturo Sandoval was a trumpet teacher. Paquito de Rivera did some saxophone. Gary Campbell, saxophone. Ignacio Baroa was the drum teacher. Jonathan Joseph also. I mean, it was an incredible opportunity. And I left there eventually to go to the warmer climate of Chicago, where I became the director of the music school at Columbia College, Chicago. So that's a quick journey through a few years.
When you first started, I mean, there were jazz bands or quote dance bands within the school or whatever, but I mean, you were really one of the pioneers of starting jazz degrees where you could go to school and get a degree. Yeah.
Yes, that's true. In the early years, as you mentioned, they were called stage bands or dance bands or anything but jazz, because that was not accepted in the educational arena at that time. So I was honored to work with the National Association of Jazz Educators, Matt Benton, Bill Lee, and people that really began to get it off the ground. And we'd have annual conferences, and this organization morphed into IAJE and then followed by JEN, which I was a founding member of also. And it's such an important opportunity. All people that are interested in jazz teaching really need to be affiliated with an organization like JEN.
JEN started what? How many years ago? 8, 9?
I think it's 10 years now.
10 years now?
Mm-hmm.
You're a member of the IAJE Hall of Fame, right?
Yes, I am.
As many other halls of fame and so forth. So tell us about the connection with the Midwest Clinic, because that came during those times as well.
Yes, I was honored to begin my trek with the Midwest Clinic in about 1966. I went to my first Midwest Clinic. Man, it is the place to be for an educator of instrumental music. It is the pinnacle. And in 1982, John Painter invited me to become a member of the board. He wanted to start a jazz element of the Midwest Clinic. I was thrilled to accept that invitation and have been a member of that organization in that regard for the past however many years that is. Now I have a great team of Tony Garcia and Jose Diaz, and we do a lot of activities during Midwest. There's some concert or clinic going on the entire breadth of Midwest.
Yeah. There's a whole track, right? That you can.
Yes, indeed.
And it's hot too. I have to ask you about this, and I see you all the time, and I never ask you. When you brought the group from Florida International to the jazz band to Midwest, I don't know, maybe the early '90s, maybe late '80s, somewhere. I don't know where in there. But you had a female drummer, a woman drummer, a girl drummer that was off, that she kicked that band all over that. You know who I'm talking about?
Yes, I do. Her name is Lorraine Faina, and she's still drumming. She's in New York City and has played with many famous groups, including Beyonce.
Oh my Lord, she was digging a groove that was deeper than the Suez Canal. And the band was hot too. I mean, the band
that was a fun concert because it was a year I was going to retire from there. And so we brought Arturo Sandoval along and Gary Campbell, and every one of the pieces that we played that year were written for that concert. Oh my God. And whenever possible, we had that composer conduct the pieces, including Shelley Berg, Mark Taylor, many others.
And there's phenomenal concerts, as you said, at the Midwest Clinic. They're all great. That's how you get there to start out with. But I remember that ballroom was just rocking, and it was just one standing ovation after another. It was on fire. It's one of the favorite things I always remember about Midwest. So it's great. Let's look ahead here a little bit. If you had a crystal ball and look ahead, what do you think's going on in the schools today in terms of jazz? I mean, it's grown so much.
Well, I think at this point, jazz education in the schools is much better, much stronger, and much more active than it's ever been. And, with this year, with the pandemic, we're discovering new ways to teach. We're doing innovative things, and we're learning some other ways of going about the educational process. For example, I've done, I think, 5 different state conferences virtually by giving clinics. And so, the YouTube is a fantastic tool for jazz educators. The entire history of jazz is on YouTube. Yeah. And one of the most important elements that people learn about jazz is to listen. Listen.
I've heard so many people say, well, yeah, I love it and I love to listen to it, but I'm not a jazzer. Well, you've written books that proves everybody can be a jazzer, right?
Yes, that is true. And, I'll give you one example. And this is one that I worked with when I was in Miami. Her name is Michelle Fernandez. She was an oboe major and became interested in jazz through the atmosphere in Miami. And she became the director of the high school band at Miami Senior High School. And so she would say, well, I don't really know. And we would just talk. And let me tell you, that girl developed the best damn jazz band in the whole state in no time. And she's continuing to serve the profession now as a composer, clinician, and so forth.
So jazz is a place for everybody.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, and I always want people who go, oh, I'm not sure. I'm like, just come over, get on the roller coaster, because it owns you, which is exciting. I know you've done a series, and I mean, you're one of our Conn Selmer clinicians, which is two thumbs up on that for sure. But you've done a series of interviews and so forth, and videos that we're going to put our arms around and make part of the Consummer Library. Tell us a little bit about that, because this is exciting.
Thanks, Tim. You know, I have to tell you how proud I am to be associated with Consummer. They are really leading the way for partnerships in education and the world of selling today. It was an outgrowth of a jazz band method, which I wrote after I retired, and called Jazz Zone: The Beginning. And this was a project that I put together with my publisher, Bob Dingley. It's called Jazz Zone Together. And it's an online interview, much like this. And our purpose in doing this is to educate, entertain, and educate more the young people and all of the people in the jazz field. We have interviews with professional musicians like Arturo Sandoval, Shelley Berg, Ignacio Baroa, Darius Brubeck. We have interviews with all of the leading educators at the collegiate level and also at the high school and middle school level. And we have also people that are in the publishing business, as Frank Alcar from Downbeat magazine is one example. So yes, I'm thrilled that we're going to do it with Consummer, because it's a very important series that will live on for many, many years. And we've done 31 up to today.
Wow.
And that will continue.
Well, and for everybody out there, I mean, really, one a night, and at the end of a month, you're going to know a lot about the entire jazz culture, because as you said, these are the best of the best. These are the creme de la creme that are cutting new pathways all the time too, in terms of jazz. This is going to be kind of unusual because you mentioned Consummer and the affiliation and so forth. I'm going to just go a little further at that. Because from the education standpoint, there's always been the education world and the music industry, music industry. How important do you think it is that these two work together as we head forward for the synergy?
Well, I think it's always been critical, but today it's even more so.
Yeah.
And the fact that you all have established what you've established with your leadership in creating this synergy is invaluable. You're not only educating and providing clinicians, but you're also providing great deals in terms of instruments and working with the schools. You're helping them to find ways to get budget and to get grants. And I think that this is a model that we have to have going forward, and probably even an increasing emphasis on.
Yeah, I don't think we can live alone. I think, we got to hook up the same wagons and move together. And many people are doing that right now. And because of people like you, because of the clinician, I still don't think there's anything greater than having a clinician stand in front of your group, maybe say the same thing the teachers said, but it's different, isn't it? Because you do clinics all the time. Don't you love to do that?
I do. Yeah, I really do love to do it. And I think that most of the clinicians today have grown through this process of the jazz education field by following mentors into the way to do clinics. I mean, you don't want to go in and just say, I know everything. Like you said, you work with the director and find out what they've been saying so that you can reinforce that and then add whatever else you can to the equation. But yeah, it's really important that we have this ongoing. No man is an island.
Boy,
without this input from others, you're really not getting the whole context of what goes on.
You have done a ton of writing. So what have you done, or some of the projects and even some of the latest projects that we can get our arms around?
Yes, well, I have two books out, and the first book was directed toward educators and how to start and create and maintain a jazz program. and I had tons of other people that wrote various parts of it. It was done in partnership with Willie Hill.
Mhm.
And then the second book that I wrote was this one that I mentioned earlier, Jazz Zone: The Beginning. But I've done probably over 200 articles also for various approaches to teaching jazz. And I think one of the most important things that I have learned through this process of clinicking and writing is to get the educator to understand the rhythm section, because the rhythm section is really the heart and soul of the jazz ensemble. And without that, it sounds like a concert band. So we've done a lot of writing and a lot of demonstrating about that.
I think that's so great. Well, I mean, now this is me stuff because drummer, man, and that's ever you drive that band. But I think for a lot of people who aren't percussionists or have not been behind a drum set or feel that, or a bass player, that's where most people fall short. Would you agree?
I would agree. And I think that's, kind of falls back on the colleges and the universities that they're not providing as much information. And I understand why. I mean, there's so many courses you have to get in. But I think that this is an item because the majority of the people out there teaching are wind players.
Yeah. I'm going to take kind of a left turn, but not really, because, I mean, you're an educator. And you talked about the Midwest Clinic. It's basically there so people can learn to take information home to make their own groups better. How important, and this is a soft pitch, you can hit this one completely out of the park. How important is the teacher in terms of connecting with the kids to develop a great jazz band?
Well, obviously, it's totally essential.
Yeah.
If you're not communicating, you're not going anywhere. And without that communication going both ways, you have to. And this is one of the things that I've learned through going to the Midwest and listening to clinics and concerts. You have to listen. You have to listen to the people that you're working with, but you also learn more when you're not talking. It's hard to do for you and I, but that's the fact. And the thing that I see with the teacher is developing a trust in that communication and going into every rehearsal prepared. They really need that preparatory information solidly in hand so that when they get into the classroom, they can really communicate with the students.
I think more than any place else. I mean, the math teacher goes in and teaches a math class. And if that math teacher leaves, they bring in another math teacher and it continues. Mm-hmm. You can have a great jazz program and that teacher leave and somebody else can come in and it can go down pretty fast. Yeah.
Well, unfortunately true. Yes.
Yeah. Or vice versa. It can go up.
Indeed. Yeah, it sure can. And Mr. Enthusiasm, Tim Lotzenheiser, if you don't have that enthusiasm going in and indicate your heart and soul is in this music and you want to share it and get them excited about it, then it becomes a lot more of a challenge. So, that once again, and you stress this and teach this more than anybody in the industry, you've got to have communication.
Yeah. That was going to be my next question. How important is communication to the whole teaching and just music in general? Because that's what it is. How important is communication on a 1 to 10 scale, with 10 being the highest?
Well, probably a 12. But I think once again we have to get the student to understand what it is we're trying to get across. And I'm going to give you an example that I've used throughout the years, and this works every time. Play the music for them with a professional recording, and let them understand that the standard that you're trying to achieve is a professional standard. I don't care if it's a high school, middle school, whatever band. That's what we're trying to achieve. And once they understand that, and in the clinics that I do, I have some recordings that I play One is by Gordon Goodwin's Big Fat Band, and it shows section by section in this tune what a professional ensemble should sound like. So that to me is a place to start, but a place to grow from.
Let me hitchhike off this communication and thing. How important to being a great jazz musician, listener, aficionado, fan, obsession, addiction, whatever. How important is listening to other groups?
I think again, once it's critical.
Yeah.
And not only just to listen to your favorite player on your instrument, but to listen to other players as well. Once again, I'll give you an example. I was in Japan touring around doing workshops over there.
Mm-hmm.
I went to this place in Asakawa. It's in the island of Hokkaido, very remote. And they had a jazz band that met once a month. And these were middle school kids. So I was, I didn't know what to expect. I walked into the room and there was maybe 12 saxophones and, just multiples all the way around, including 2 drummers and 3 bass players. And I thought, oh, I know what this is going to sound like, right? Wrong. They sounded like Count Basie. And the reason that they did that was the director had instituted a program of buying recording a CD for every student in the band, first of all on their own instrument, and they would all trade back and forth then. And then they'd trade between sections. And you know what? They knew what it was supposed to sound like, and they made it happen.
Yes. What a great teacher. What a great teacher. Because we're back to the teaching thing again. What if I'm a flutist? Or I'm we're talking about Michelle, an oboe player, mm-hmm. and I want to be in the jazz band. And I'm talking from behind the eyes of a director who goes, oh, how do I make this happen? What would they do?
Well, first of all, they would have to become familiar with the idiom.
Yeah.
And, it's sometimes easier to take a teacher or a student where they are and bring them along. So, I would have them listen to some flute professionals, uh-huh. Esther Torres and other people like that, because they're playing more toward the pop side, the Latin side, right. And bring them gradually into the area where we all, want to go, which is being able to teach all styles.
So there's a hope if I play French horn or euphonium or bass clarinet, there's hope that I can get in the jazz idiom, yeah?
There is no excuse for you not to.
Because I think for a lot of kids, they go, well, I like it, but I could never perform in it because I don't play one of those instruments.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the other thing, Tim, is that we have so many tools available to help the educators. There's books, there's recordings, there's all different sorts of aids that can help them to come along. So as I said, there's no excuse as long as they give it everything that they've got in terms of dedication and serious approach to teaching. It's just a different style. It's, there's classical, there's romantic, there's this, there's that, and there's jazz. It's another style.
When you were at Purdue, when you said you had 7 jazz bands, mm-hmm. and those were probably some pretty good players because those engineers were probably all, valedictorians or something of their class, right?
That was really an interesting statement that you just made, because my top band, we would go to festivals and compete with other schools that had jazz programs.
Yeah. And
for 15 minutes, we could play just about as good as they could. But after that, it was over because they never practiced.
That's
it.
Well, and Purdue, there's no music school, right?
Right.
And so, but just great. They were probably first chair in their high school band.
Oh, all of them.
at
Sure.
whatever it was. Oh, this is great. So I'm going to take another twist here because, yeah, if you got 7 jazz bands and they're all pushing each other to get to that top one, et cetera, that's one thing. What if I'm out in the middle of the prairie somewhere and my whole band program is 33 and there's no way I could ever get 5 saxophones or 4 trumpets or 4 trombones? Is it hopeless? Should I just give up and not have a jazz band?
No, man. No. You know, we have so many great professional writers today.
Mhm.
And most of the major music publishers that do jazz have what they're called convertible series, where they can play with 4 different instruments and have a jazz band that has a rhythm section, piano, bass, and drums, or whatever you have. And you know, Jamie Aebersold,
Oh,
the king of play-alongs. I mean, if funny story, I was driving through the state of Texas one time, and I listened to a jazz station, and they put on this recording, and it was a Jamie Aebersold record, but no melody, nothing. It was just Jamie's rhythm section the whole time.
backup.
But he has over 100 recordings to listen to play along with, and that's just one example.
Oh, yeah. Well, let's take that even further. So the situation I just described, how about small groups, combos, etc.?
Combos are the place to begin to really learn to improvise. That's the place where you can begin to get into that. And once again, there are a lot of materials out there for combos that you can begin to work with. But even the best big band programs have combos, and their emphasis is on teaching the improvisation.
Is improvisation possible for everybody?
I suppose you could probably say maybe not everybody, but here's the thing. If you can sing,
Mhm.
and you don't have to be a great singer, but if you can sing a style in jazz, boo boo doo bop boo boo doo boo doo bop, then you can play it.
Yeah,
But you just have to go slowly.
yeah.
And one of the best jazz programs at the high school level that I've ever seen is Dillard High School. Chris
Mhm.
Dorsey's the director.
Mhm.
He has those kids learning to improvise by transcribing recordings from the great jazz masters. They don't have to play the whole solo, but maybe a couple of measures and then a couple more, and then they evaluate each other. And it's amazing. It's really an incredible program.
I've watched so many people, and they're like, no, 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 just get 2 notes,
Hmm?
3, and start playing. And all of a sudden, it's like enlightenment or something. They're like, well, I
Yeah,
can add more notes and more rhythms.
sure, sure.
It's just fun. Also, I again, I guess I'm looking for affirmation here. I don't know, but there's kids walking around the school that are great bass guitar players or guitar players, and they didn't join the band. They didn't get in on the pick your instrument night or whatever. The people can find players there too.
Absolutely. Some of the best players that I've had during the high school years have come through that portal. And the thing is that, you know, the best improvisers I found at the high school level before you started working with them were the guitar players, because
Yeah.
that's all they did. You know, they played without music, and they really could improvise. And as far as bass players are concerned, if they can keep steady time, I can teach them how to play different styles.
Yes.
And you know, that rhythm section component, piano, bass, drums, guitar, they're not used to playing in an ensemble. So for them, once they get into this idiom and playing together, it's a brand new and really satisfying experience for them.
Yeah. I think everybody ought to have a run at it. It's like everything else. And it's like once you bump up against it or it gets in your blood, you're there forever
Yeah,
because you really do create at the moment.
it's instant composition.
I love it. Again, of course, we have a lot of teachers that watch this and a lot of college students that watch this. As you look to the future, what do you see happening in music education as a whole? Where are we going? What do you think's going? What's it going to be, particularly after this pandemic?
Well, let's start with the pandemic. I think that we've learned a lot of new ways to educate through this pandemic. So taking those forward and combining those with the innovations that come along, I think we'll see new kinds of jazz as we have seen developments happen over the years. We'll go into new directions and we'll incorporate new kinds of approaches. And I think that may be true for all music as we go forward, because I think we're in a period of time now where people really need to be able to develop and go in a new direction. And so I think that we'll carry the history with us. That will never go away. But I do think there will be new methods and there will be new kinds of music that come out of this process.
Yeah, yeah. I think we've learned a lot out of a have to, and we're going to carry that over. Wow. Go ahead.
Just one more thing.
Yeah.
Another example of this is when I was at Columbia College in Chicago, a young teacher there, Bill Boris, developed a program that was a fusion program. And he would take an unusual set of instrumentalists and put them together in a fusion ensemble. I think new ensembles also will come out of this future.
Yeah, out of necessity, but then we're going to be able to pick the fruit from a great harvest from all this that wouldn't happen. I'm going to scold you just a little bit here. If you, me scolding Dick Dunscomb, good Lord, Tim, I think it was 3 years ago at Midwest Clinic, I'm running around and I went down to hear, in fact, it was Janice Stackhouse's band from North, who just, so I stuck my head in to make sure everything was okay. And it was like an undertow. I couldn't leave. And so I missed an introduction. But it was so good. It like, the jazz wraps its arms around you and pulls it up against you. And there's no way I was going to leave. That band was just roaring.
Well, thank you for saying that, Tim. And I will also go a little bit further and say that area down there at the McCormick place that we call it Jazz World.
Yeah.
And it's a smaller venue. It seats about 1,000 people.
Yeah. And
we have a clinic room. And it is really an educational experience, but it's also spellbinding.
Yes, it's carbonated, it's electric. So, all right. Well, I told you this 30 minutes would go by quickly, and it goes by too quickly. Two things. One is, and I asked this because Tony did a backstage too. Mm-hmm. Tony Garcia, because this is a whole world, your jazz world, right? At Midwest, this is a whole world unto itself. And will you please come back and so we can explore this a little further in another backstage interview?
It would be my pleasure, Tim. I'm always happy to be with you,
I love that. So for all of you, there's always that last little coda we put on every backstage. What advice do you have for all those teachers that are out there that are each day scraping the ice off their windshields and pulling up and spilling coffee in their lap, but going in and teaching great music education? What advice do you have for them?
Just keep believing. Just keep believing and moving forward. It sometimes goes slow, but as long as you remain dedicated and interested in the education of your students, you're going to be successful.
Yeah. How many years have you been involved in music education? How many years?
Quite a few.
More than 5.
More than 5, less than 100.
You know what, of the many things that I love about you is when you talked about enthusiasm, you are always on your A game, and people reflect it. And it's like, oh, Dunscomb's here, man, we're all going to feel a lot better because he's going to make sure we're all moving forward. So you walk your talk, my friend, and you do it with a sense of class unknown in common hours too. Please tell Jackie I said hi. I love you both dearly. And thanks for giving us a huge hunk of your time. And to all of you, I beg you, don't watch this once. Watch it several times and study it, because there's wisdom integrated in everything that Dick Dunscomb shared with us. So we'll see you next time on Backstage. Thanks again, Dick. And for all of you, let's make some good music. Thank you. Bye-bye.